Today, climate change is intensifying and causing widespread losses around the world. One of its most severe consequences is forced displacement, a situation in which people are compelled to leave their homes, farmland, and familiar ways of life in search of safer places. Such displacement may be temporary, seasonal, or in many cases, permanent. For farming communities, losing land means far more than losing property. It means losing food production, livelihoods, and ways of life that have been passed down through generations. This reality is unfolding across the world, from the Pacific island nations of Vanuatu and Tuvalu, where rising sea levels threaten entire territories, to the Philippines, where powerful typhoons force people from their homes, and South America, where prolonged drought has driven communities to relocate. Thailand is no exception. The case of Hue Khap village in Bo Kleu district, Nan province, illustrates how a community has permanently relocated following a devastating landslide. Yet, the relocation took place only after enormous losses had already occurred. Meanwhile, many other communities across Thailand continue to live under similar risks and may also face forced displacement in the future. Although Thailand has adopted a National Adaptation Plan, or NAP, for climate change, closer examination of the sections on human settlements and human security reveals that preparedness for climate-induced displacement has not yet been established as a clear policy direction. Furthermore, the plan does not address the design or implementation of planned relocation strategies to permanently relocate communities from high-risk areas before disasters occur. Consequently, populations at risk of climate-induced displacement may be forced to relocate in an unplanned and reactive manner, relying largely on their own limited resources rather than coordinated government support. Furthermore, existing Geographic Information System or GIS mapping in Thailand has primarily focused on identifying where disasters are likely to occur. It has yet to answer two critical questions: who is at risk of being forcibly displaced, and how should we prepare for them? This policy gap gave rise to the central research question of this project. As climate risks continue to intensify, how can Thailand identify at-risk communities, prepare for future displacement, and develop a fair, sustainable, and people-centered land allocation system that responds to the needs of vulnerable farming communities? That question became the starting point of this research. The project towards just and sustainable land allocation for Southeast Asia's farmers displaced by climate change is funded by Canada's International Development Research Centre, or IDRC. The research is led by the School of Public Policy, Chiang Mai University, in collaboration with the Faculty of Journalism and Mass Communication, Thammasat University, and the United Nations Satellite Center, or UNOSAT. By integrating expertise in public policy, communication, and geospatial technology, the project develops decision support tools to inform evidence-based policy making. The study spans 3 countries, Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam, allowing for comparative analysis while contributing to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, particularly no poverty, SDG 1, reduced inequalities, SDG 10, and climate action, SDG 13. To better understand the impacts, vulnerabilities, and political challenges of climate-induced displacement, this research focuses on Thailand as its primary case study. The development of the Geographic Information System, or GIS, did not begin with computer mapping alone. It began at the upstream stage of the research process through the integration of data science and social science to generate evidence that reflects Thailand's real-world context. The research team first established collaborations with more than 25 government agencies responsible for disaster management, natural resources, land development, spatial planning, and other policy and operational sectors. This was followed by a series of World Cafe workshops, bringing together experts from multiple agencies to jointly identify the key variables that best represent Thailand's climate-related displacement risks. Based on this analytical process, 3 major hazard variables were identified for the risk assessment: droughts, landslides, and floods. These hazard variables were subsequently integrated into the Informed Risk Assessment Framework to develop a spatial risk model. The United Nations Satellite Center, or UNOSAT, was responsible for producing the Geographic Information System, or GIS maps, which identify the locations of agricultural communities that are highly vulnerable and at elevated risk of being forcibly displaced as a result of climate change-induced disasters. The result is Thailand's first climate displacement risk map, which not only identifies where disasters are likely to occur, but also reveals which farming communities are most at risk of losing their land and being forcibly displaced. This evidence-based mapping provides a critical foundation for future policy planning, disaster preparedness, and land allocation strategies. The macro-level risk maps enabled the research team to identify representative provinces for the 3 major hazards: Pranakon Siyayutthaya for floods, Nan for landslides, and Chayapum for drought. However, to locate risk areas with greater precision, the project did not stop at the provincial level. It developed micro-level maps, zooming in across the 3 provinces to sub-district, village, and agricultural land levels to identify the most vulnerable hotspots. The closer spatial analysis revealed how geography shaped risks differently in each location: steep upstream areas in Nan, low-lying flood-receiving plains in Pranakon Siyayutthaya, and drought-prone areas facing prolonged dry spells in Chayapum. These hotspots do not simply indicate where disasters may occur. They provide evidence that identifies which areas and farming communities face the highest risk of losing land and being forcibly displaced by climate change. The micro-level maps, therefore, serve as a critical bridge between spatial data, field research, and the design of land allocation approaches that respond to each community's specific context. Risk maps can identify where communities are vulnerable, but only the voices of the people themselves can tell us what should happen next. This marks the beginning of the midstream phase of the research, where the team worked directly with communities affected by climate change to listen, learn, and co-develop solutions. Fieldwork was conducted in Bokle District, Nan Province, Bangban District, Pranakon Siyayutthaya Province, and Hue Bong Sub-District, Mueang Chayapum District, Chayapum Province. The primary objective was to examine risk communication, assess risk perception, and understand the actual needs of local communities through an intensive mixed methods research approach. The study included household surveys of 400 households in each province, totaling 1,200 households, together with 3 focus group discussions in each study area and 130 in-depth interviews with community representatives, 29 in Nan, 41 in Pranakon Siyayutthaya, and 60 in Chayapum. This enabled the research team to combine quantitative evidence with the real experiences of the local people. These findings did not remain solely within the research report. The voices of more than 1,000 households were integrated into collaborative planning with provincial government agencies. Community needs were combined with spatial and geographical constraints to jointly define key planning criteria, leading to the development of the land allocation map. The map was designed to answer a critical question: if farming communities are forced to relocate because of climate change, where can they move to? A place that is safe, suitable, and capable of sustaining their livelihoods and way of life. Insights from the field revealed one important reality: Although all three study areas face climate-related risks, the needs and priorities of their communities differ significantly. For farming communities, relocation is not always the preferred option. In Pranakonศรีอยุธยา, where communities live with recurrent flooding, most residents do not wish to relocate. Instead, they call for more effective and equitable water management. Similarly, in Chayapum, despite facing prolonged drought, farmers remain deeply connected to their land. They believe they can adapt and continue their way of life, provided they receive appropriate support through knowledge, technology, and sustainable resource management. By contrast, in Nan Province, where the threat of landslides is both immediate and severe, many residents expressed a willingness to relocate, provided that safe land is available and their livelihoods and way of life can be sustained. These findings demonstrate that climate-induced displacement cannot be addressed through a one-size-fits-all policy. Effective responses must be tailored to the specific context, risks, and needs of each community. To translate these findings into action, the project presented both the Climate Displacement Risk Map and the Community Needs Assessment to policymakers through a series of executive workshops held across the three provinces in collaboration with the Thai Network for Disaster Resilience, or TNDR. These workshops brought together government agencies and key stakeholders to collectively examine evidence from the field and develop policy recommendations for addressing climate-induced displacement in the future. From the upstream generation of evidence, through midstream community engagement, to downstream policy action, this research has gone beyond documenting the impacts of climate change. It has generated new knowledge and practical tools to support evidence-based planning and policy decision-making in Thailand. One of the project's key achievements is the development of Thailand's first climate displacement risk map, which integrates scientific evidence, hazard data, vulnerability, coping capacity, and community perspectives into a single analytical framework. By combining empirical evidence with the real-life experiences of affected communities, the project has established a new model for spatial risk assessment in Thailand. Building upon this knowledge, the research further developed the Land Allocation Map, a planning tool that considers not only physical safety but also livelihoods, local contexts, and the needs of farming communities when identifying suitable areas for planned relocation. At the same time, the project has promoted meaningful collaboration among government agencies, researchers, and local communities, ensuring that land allocation strategies and future policy responses are developed through a participatory and evidence-based process. But to strengthen anticipatory planning before displacement becomes inevitable, it seeks to ensure that people have access to safe, fair, and sustainable options for the future. When relocation can no longer be avoided, no one should be forced to leave their home without choice, dignity, and the opportunity to rebuild their lives.